For decades, VA loans have gotten the most confusion, myths, and unfortunately lies compared to all other loans. But one of the major areas within the VA loan process that these things come up in is in regards to the appraisal. So in this video, I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about the VA appraisal to help make sure that you are arming yourself with the smoothest possible loan process that you can have. And if you're new here, this channel was created to educate you, the veteran, about the VA home loan benefit completely free. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel and let me know down in the comments what you want to hear more about. All right, so let's dive into some of the information around VA loan and the appraisal process. The first thing that we need to talk about is, what is a VA loan appraisal? This is an assessment that is done by a VA approved appraiser to make sure that it meets the VA's guidelines. But make sure that you also understand this. I said a VA approved appraiser, not a VA appraiser. Those are two very different things, because a lot of people have come to this conclusion that appraisers work for the VA or for whomever the loan type is that they're actually taking out. And that is not true whatsoever. I hear it all the time where a real estate agent will tell me, oh, if you're VA appraiser or if the VA's appraiser, and that's not actually the fact at all. Appraisers are independent contractors. They are not employees of the VA. They're just there to actually work on behalf of what the VA's requirements are, which means that same appraiser that is appraising the property that maybe you yourself are trying to buy is also the same appraiser that can go do a conventional appraisal, an FHA appraisal, and even a USDA appraisal. Now, is there going to be differences between a VA appraisal and other appraisals? No, that would be very much illegal. A lot of people think that because you're doing a VA loan, the appraised value is going to come in different, and that is not true. There is no difference in valuation when you are taking out a VA loan, and anyone telling you otherwise is not telling you something that is factual. The process and comps are the same. Appraisals are often confused with home inspections as well, which is what we're going to talk about here in a second. But both home inspection and appraisal have an equal sense of value or importance that I think you need to be aware of. An appraisal just determines the value of the property. A home inspection is there to determine condition. I'm going to do a whole separate video on home inspections. So if you're watching this video by the time that I actually have released this video that I'm doing on home inspections, I'll link it above. It should be popping up now and even down below in the description for you to check that one out as well. But appraisals are there to determine value, not property condition. From when it comes to purpose of the appraisal for a VA loan, the VA uses these three main words these three main terms to determine whether or not a property is even eligible to be able to do a VA loan on it. Is it safe? Is it sanitary? And is it structurally sound? If you can answer those three as yes, yes, and yes, more times than not, you're going to be able to get a VA loan on that property. And this is there to protect the veteran by ensuring they don't overpay for a property that isn't worth being paid for. The appraisal is there to determine market value for the lender, just to make sure that they don't loan money on something that it's not worth. And the focus is on the condition, features, and recent sales and trends. Now let's talk about the ordering process, or I should say the appraisal process, in terms of how everything goes when you actually do need to have one done. The appraisal ordering is done by your lender. It's not done by you. It's not done by your real estate agent, not done by the seller. It is done by the lender. The appraiser is requested by the lender when they submit a request to the VA portal, and the VA assigns an appraiser, again, an independent contractor. Once that appraisal has been assigned and what's called accepted, this means that the appraiser that you are working with is now going to have a due date that they must meet. This is not something that's done on all loans. Not all loans require a specific due date for an appraisal to be returned. And this can often cause certain delays in your transaction, depending on the workload that is going on in your local area. The nice thing about when an appraisal is accepted on a VA loan is that acceptance date triggers the requirement for that appraisal to be completed within a certain amount of time. Completion dates do vary across different regions and different areas. It does heavily depend, but most commonly what I feel like I've seen is about 10 business days for what the requirement will be. If you want me to tell you exactly what your appraisal due date would be in your particular area, I do need to know the exact city and the state that you're in, because sometimes there's multiple different due dates within the same state and even within the same county. So let me know the exact city and state that you're in, and I can let you know exactly how long you can expect an appraisal to take in your area. This also applies to cost. Cost does vary across different states, different counties, and different cities. So if you want to know what that will look like as well, then I can definitely answer that for you. But when it comes to cost, you are paying for your appraisal yourself. Some lenders require you to pay for this upfront when the appraisal is ordered. And other lenders, like my team, we actually do not charge you for your appraisal upfront. We just add it into your total closing costs later on in the process. Personally, what I've seen in terms of what appraisal costs are with regards to how much they vary, I would say they vary anywhere between about $650 all the way up to about $900. If you want to know what that looks like for you in your area, comment that below as well. Let's say, let me know what my appraisal cost is and let me know my appraisal due date. And I can definitely tell you about how long that should be taking in regards to your appraisal process. What about VA appraisal focus areas? The focus areas on a VA appraisal, other than the property's safe, sanitary, and structurally sound focus, is going to be on what's called minimum property requirements, which are for things like your heating, electrical, plumbing, roof condition, access to the property, which in regards to a street or of a private road agreement, and then also if there is any chipping paint. These are going to be the most common things that they're going to be looking at, but there is a larger pool of things that they are looking for as well. I have a whole video that I've already done on minimum property requirements. If you want to check that video out, I will also link that video above and down below in the description as well, if you want to get an idea of what to be aware of that the VA is going to require a property to be having in order to get a VA loan. Now, what happens after appraisal is completed? If an appraisal meets value or exceeds the value, this is awesome. Then what you end up getting to do is move forward with your purchase transaction. You'll receive an appraisal report, and that appraisal will consist of a few things in regards to property information, like the property's identification, the property details, comparable sales, property condition, value estimate, minimum property requirement assessments, photos of the property, a map, and also a certification and limiting conditions. The next thing that you'll also be receiving is a copy of what's called a notice of value. The VA is going to review the appraisal report and issue the NOV along with any potential repairs or conditions that must be met before approval. The lender also reviews the NOV to decide if the loan can move forward. So it's important to not only get a copy of the appraisal report I mentioned, but also a copy of a clear NOV, because if you don't have those two things, a clear appraisal that says that the appraised value is as is, and then also at a notice of value stating that there isn't any other conditions, then you're going to possibly run into some delays that could delay your closing. And again, as I just mentioned, if you have any conditions that are on the appraisal report or on your NOV, as it shows here, it's going to be something that will be required to be actually completed or fixed before you can actually proceed to closing on that loan. So what happens if you get an appraisal back and it comes in below asking or below what your contract price is? This is what's known as a Tidewater notice. And this is something that makes VA loans very unique compared to other loans during the appraisal process. If an appraiser is actually going to go out and do an appraisal, they are not required to let you know that the appraisal is going to come in low. But on a VA loan, they are. Let's say you're under contract for a property that is agreed at $400,000, and the appraiser thinks that it's going to come in low before they issue the appraisal. When this happens, the appraiser must issue what's called a Tidewater notice, and this is so that way all the parties involved in the transaction have the ability to provide comps to the appraiser as to how they came up with this agreed $400,000 sales price. And these comps are going to be on recent sales, not pending sales, not properties that are on the market. It has to be based on recent sales to be able to provide the appraiser with some context as to how they came up with this price. Now, providing this information does not guarantee that the appraiser is going to increase their valuation by any means. It's just giving you an opportunity to provide them with some supporting information as to how we came up with this agreement. But let's say that they still come in with that appraisal report and it came in low. This is where things become very different than any other type of loan. On a low appraisal, when it comes to a VA loan, you are now going to have the ability to renegotiate with the seller. If that appraiser comes in with $390,000 versus your agreed purchase price of $400,000, I would highly recommend you start there, because now you may be able to get the house for a slightly lower price. So if you can go back to the seller and say, hey, the appraisal come back at $390,000, not $400,000, we want to drop the price to $390,000. The appraiser, the home seller has some options that they're going to have to weigh. One, are they willing to drop the price? Which sometimes many of them may be willing to do this. And then others may play hardball and want to make you pay the full price. And I've even seen other situations where the seller says, we're not going to drop it to $390,000, but we're willing to drop it to 395 by 5,000, basically saying, let's meet in the middle. The only thing here is you'll have to come in with a down payment of anything that exceeds your appraised value. Just keep that in mind. So if your property appraises for 390, you're under contract for 400. Anything over 390 that you're going to try to pay, you won't be able to have your loan be for that much. You'll have to do a down payment for anything above the appraised value in that situation. But you also have this other option as well. If the seller still wants to play hardball and they're like, no, we want it to be 395 or 400, it doesn't even matter how much it is, as long as it's anything more than what the appraised value is. You do also have the ability to walk away completely and say, you know what, we'll just go find another house. You have that option as well. The one other option that I didn't mention though is what's called a reconsideration of value. And this is another very unique thing that the VA loan has that no other loan has. A reconsideration of value is you submitting for what's called an appeal of the decision that the appraiser granted. What's going to happen here is when you submit a reconsideration of value, you're basically writing a letter to the VA stating that you feel like the value that was given should be reconsidered and provide some supporting information as to why. Then what's going to happen is the VA is going to go back to that appraiser and provide them with an opportunity to change their valuation. If the appraiser decides not to change their valuation, which they have every right to, the VA has what's called a staff appraiser who will actually do a review themselves to determine if they agree with the appraiser's information. If they do not agree, they actually can increase the valuation, which I've seen happen many times. I think when I last did a metric for how many times that we had a reconsideration of value done with my team, we actually had an 80% success rate where the staff appraiser increased the appraiser's valuation. And this is something that could not only change the transaction, but can save a transaction for you if you're trying to buy a property that maybe you got a little bit unlucky with that appraisal decision. So there you guys have it. All the things that you need to know about the VA loan appraisal process. If you want to learn about how to have two VA loans at the same time, watch this video right here. And if you want to learn how to house hack with your VA loan and buy multi-unit property, check out this video right here.